double, take a brew. We got 10 provinces, 3 territories, and more polite folks than you'll ever see. We say sorry even when we're right, and fight off bears in the middle of the night. Okay, so like Leon, Canada is...
I know you, you know me, but for the record, could you please tell us your name, rank, social number, and where you're located and what you do for a living?
Sure. My name is Linda Bowers. I'm a realtor broker with Century 21 in Studio Realty here in Kincardine. I've been a realtor since 1997. That's like making me feel really old when I say it like that, but moved to Kincardine in 2005 and I have enjoyed a good career in real estate here in this community. I can't remember my social insurance number.
No, in the army, you don't even get medical coverage. If you're dying, first thing you got to tell them is your social insurance number. So I rattle it off in my sleep. So real estate, just for the audience, I've got audience from Australia to California. Describe the kind of real estate, and I'm asking this is a loaded question, real estate in Ontario, real estate in the GTA, real estate in Kincardine. They're all quite different.
Very different, very different. Our pricing in our community here in Bruce County is on a par to that in Toronto, but there's a variation in what your property values are in Toronto to Kincardine. Toronto has the masses of people, so their property taxes are spread out more equally, or and here we just don't have that affordability. We have only in Kincardine, it's just under 13,000 population, and the expectation is that we're going to have roads and sewers and water and schools and everything else that they have in Toronto. We don't have public transportation, but on an average, our cost of living here is the same as in Toronto. The cost to build is the same as in Toronto. But when people come from Toronto to this community, they think things are going to be cheaper. They're not. Cost of bread here is the same as in Toronto. So that's one disparity that we have in Kincardine as well. We have, because of the world's largest nuclear facility here, we have a big disparity in wages. We have the people that work in the grocery stores and the cafes, and then we have the folks that work at Bruce Power. Now, not everybody at Bruce Power makes $150,000, but there's this perception that they are, no, it's not a perception. They are substantially better paid than the people in the grocery stores, or even the shopkeepers here. When you're self-employed, you don't make the same kind of wages. You pay for your supplies and your staff first, and then you might get $1.50 to take home. So we have this huge disparity here in Kincardine with the cost of living and wages that can be earned. Rents are expensive. Not even, I think in Toronto, you can get a 1-bedroom for $2,000 a month. Here it's $2,500 to $3,500. I've even had some at $4,000 a month, plus utilities. So the costs are extremely different here. Where we fit in Ontario, it's different all over. Each community has its own percentages. Again, everyone has to pay the same or more. It depends on what part of the province you live in. If your bread has to be trucked up to James Bay, it's going to be more money than it is here. But there are great disparities and differences across the province. I had someone call me yesterday from London, wanted to show one of my listings. And I have a caveat in it that, the owners have a 24-hour period for notice of showings because they have a toddler and they have a dog. And they both work. Well, this agent from London was annoyed that I wouldn't arrange the showing. I said, I can't. They have to make these arrangements, and the dog is such that I'm not going to go in and try and wrestle with her. And no, you can't go to the property. I suggested that she refer her buyer here. She said, well, you're not the first one to tell me that today. And she was complaining about having to drive from London back and forth to show properties. I said, refer your clients, just refer them. We're licensed by the province of Ontario, but there's no way I am going to try and represent a buyer. Even in Collingwood, I won't go there, or Owen Sound. I don't know the community well enough to say, this is what's happening here, these are the amenities and so on. I just won't do it. It's not fair to the buyer. I need to be able to inform that buyer of all aspects of their purchase, not just, this is the property, here's what you have to pay.
So did you lose that buyer?
That showing, I explained that to the sellers and they said that they preferred not to be bending the rules and they were okay with that showing going away. Consequently, as soon as I hung up from that call, another realtor called, a local realtor, and said, I'd like to make a showing. So the property was listed yesterday afternoon and we've had 2 showings already. Yeah, so I'm not bothered by that. If, you know, when you don't understand, when you come into a community like ours, we still have septic systems at several properties here in Kincardine. A London realtor doesn't understand that. They don't deal with septic systems generally, right? Unless they do rural, and not very many of them do. So it's really important to be able to say, okay, this property's got these amenities and this is what you have to do. It's very different.
On that subject, when I moved in here from Toronto, from Burlington, I took a house near Kincardine Avenue, and I was surprised, shocked. I couldn't believe it that one side of Kincardine Avenue would have garbage pickup, but the other side wouldn't.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they managed with snow removal. One side was part of the township, the other one was. So it was strange, but it happened. And I'd never heard of the word called septic tank. So we just presumed everywhere, right? And I went into one of the grocery stores and they had a stack of toilet paper, said, these are, I forget the word, biodegradable was a common word.
Yes.
They
Yes.
also talked about adaptable for septic tanks.
Yes. Yeah.
And I had to ask, and it was an eye opener for me. I didn't realize that we just figured whatever you throw down the toilet gets dissolved, but it didn't. Anyway, so you mentioned earlier that the cost of living is same in GTA and here. And I personally, go to GTA quite a bit, 4 or 5 times a month. And I find, my random check that I do is on meat. Meat is 30% or more expensive here than over there.
Mm-hmm.
So the average home that has bacon and eggs and a little bit of meat or whatever else, your grocery bill can become 20-25% steeper.
Yes, that's
And
true.
you did
That's
mention
true.
also that trucking a loaf of bread to James Bay costs a lot of money, and that's true. And when our highways are closed, even Tim Hortons doesn't have supplies. So we are hit by that, which GTA people do not understand.
No, they don't. No.
And when I tell them highway is closed for 3 days, they say, impossible. How can a highway be closed, right? And here it's open for going to work and back, that's it, but not for going, in this last winter, we drove down to Forest, Ontario quite a bit, which is near between London and Sarnia.
Mm-hmm.
And very often, 15-20 times, we were diverted off Highway 21 because of snow squalls.
Yes.
Yeah. And forest people don't understand that. They just live around the corner. So life is different. So coming back to that, let's talk about other differences in real estate, because in GTA, I see a lot of places advertising, very low percentage commission or no commission and cashback and all kinds of things that I never hear about in Kincardine.
That's true. When I got into the business, it was common to charge 6%. And our regulator, registrar does not allow us to fix a commission. So I can't say that commission across Ontario is 6% or 2% or anything. It's per business. Each brokerage has their own business model. And so they determine what they're going to charge. Over the years, commissions have come down, prices have gone up. So it's a little bit, the balancing act is improving. We have one company that comes into the area once in a while, and they market that they are a 3% realtor. So they'll pay the contracts for 3%, but they will split that 1.5 and 1.5. So they take 1.5 and they pay a buyer brokerage 1.5%. I'm seeing commissions here drop into that 1.5% on a buyer side as prices have increased. So we've got more and more properties listed at $1 million. So it's common sense then that your commission would drop accordingly, right? So to the 1.5%, you're still making a lot of money on that transaction. The firms that say they're not paying anything are generally firms that charge the seller for specific services. So it's they'll put the property on MLS. You have to sign an agreement, fill in the form, and it's loaded up to the real estate board to go on the national MLS system. They'll charge a flat fee for that. Then they'll charge a flat fee for photos to be taken, or the seller provides their own photos. They'll charge a flat fee if a sign goes on the property. So there's different aspects of each. Again, it's all about the business model, how they want to do that. They say 0% to the buyer commission on the buyer side because the buyer's brokerage has to deal directly with the seller. Typically, when a property is listed, there's the listing brokerage and the buyer brokerage. And the listing brokerage agrees to pay the buyer brokerage, whatever the commission is stated on the sheet on the MLS, it'll indicate. There are different types of agency now where a seller can be self-represented. So that he doesn't he doesn't use a realtor for advice or guidance on marketing or pricing. But he does often, they will agree to pay a buyer brokerage or buyer representative a dollar value, whether it's a flat fee or commission. They will generally agree to that. If the seller does not agree to pay the buyer brokerage, then the buyer rep goes back to the buyer and has a discussion about compensation that way. So there are all kinds of variables that can happen. I know in commercial, it's different than residential. The commission fees are higher. The work that you do is substantially more detailed, maybe than a residential. And often if you're dealing with a lease in commercial, you'll get paid again, on those lease renewals. So if it's a 5-year lease and you go back in, you get a new fee for keeping the lease active. For residential, it's very different, and it is quite a variation. Again, it comes down to business models. So each brokerage, whether it's EXP, Keller Williams, Century 21, Coldwell Banker, everyone's got their own brokerage business model and how they're going to work. That said, within the brokerage, if the brokerage says, we charge for services, then we do that. But in my brokerage, if I take a listing, I can negotiate with the seller what my commission is going to be. I will negotiate with the seller what the commission payable to the buyer brokerage is going to be. So if I said, okay, I'm going to take this listing and the seller agrees to pay me 5%, but I'm going to pay the buyer brokerage 2%. So I keep 3 and give away a 2. I don't give it away, but I pay the other side 2%. The cost of running a listing includes, in my case, I do a pre-list inspection, all the photography and videography, the signage, the marketing, that's all my expense. So typically you factor, 1% towards managing the property and 2% for my work. Well, now it's a little different. The prices, as I said, are going up, so the commissions are fluctuating. With the way the legislation changed in 2023, we are obliged to explain in great detail what the various types of representation are. And we have to have the client, whether it's a seller, buyer, or a self-represented person, sign a document. It's 13 pages just on representation. And then we do the offer or the list, those other documents that are required. So if I'll take a listing, and if someone comes to me directly and does not have representation from any other buyer representative, then I can take them on as a client as long as both sides understand that they could be clients. There's a special it's called designated representative.
So now the new topic that came to my mind was, I'll tell you how it started. I bumped into a lot of young people who are mostly from my country. They've come with a lot of money and left their parents behind in big debt. It's not easy money. They mortgage their homes and whatever. And these kids had dreams that they're going to pay back 30, 40, 50, $60,000 in a year.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a misconception when I tell them, it took me 44 years to buy a new car and I change every so often after 44 years, not from day one, right? I used to keep my car for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for them to believe and understand. So several things we talk about, and I'm big on mental health and suicide prevention, so I give them a lot of time to clarify their doubts, and a lot of these false hopes cause depression. And one of the big false hopes that they've got is that when they find out that after grade 10 they can't go and do their MBA, there's a lot of years of studies before you can go for MBA. I don't know why it's a shocker to them. But then they say, if I can't get that, I'll get a job as a car salesman or a realtor. And they don't understand how much studying, how much knowledge, how much you got to have. And it's not just filling out a form and taking the commission. That's what they think. It's still $1 million property and I get a healthy commission. I'm sitting at home doing nothing. In the meantime, I could be blah, blah, blah. And I say, look, there's lots and lots that you put in with sometimes not making a penny. Because till the deal is closed, you haven't made a penny. You can put in hundreds of hours. So when I tell them 9 out of 10 don't believe me, but when the ones who believe me, they said, well, where can we, they call me uncle because of my age and respect for elders. And they call me uncle, where can I get this experience? Is there an apprenticeship program? And I started thinking about it. If I want to be a machinist or a carpenter or whatever, there's an apprenticeship program. Besides formal training, you still have to tag on to somebody's coattails and learn. Are there any realtors who offer apprenticeship?
We have most realtors, no, there's no apprenticeship. You go and you do your courses. The better brokerages will offer mentoring.
That's what I mean.
So you shadow another realtor, and you can partner with that realtor. You can get some compensation out of it, but that's falling away. When I started in the business, it was expected that you would have a mentor or shadow someone for 2 years. That you didn't write an offer or you didn't prepare documentation without someone reviewing it. And that's changed over the years. Now, the way that education is delivered now is expanding. Right now, it's only at Humber College. This time next year, it'll be offered at 4 colleges. But it's still, you still come out of that without experience. You're going in without mentoring, you do the programming, and then you look for a realtor to tag on with or a company to join. That's one of the first questions I tell people that come to me and ask what they should do about real estate. Find a brokerage, interview the brokerage owner, interview the brokerage manager, who's going to be your day-to-day person, and make sure you have a good feeling with that. Challenge them on it. Go and talk to other realtors that are in that brokerage. But it's very difficult because of sometimes it's the privacy issues. You're bringing someone along that's not experienced. You need to have a trust with them that they're not going to relay any of the information they might hear or see because it's confidential, right? You can go into some pretty dire situations, and you need to be sure, if I'm the mentor, that the person that's with me understands the need for confidentiality and they just can't share everything they hear or see. So that's a big risk for some people. I really enjoy having someone work with me, the training aspect, because it's like any other profession, you can learn everything from the books. But until you practice it, until you are dealing with people, and every situation is different. It's there are days around when I look at the way people are dressed, right? And if I'm a professional going into a meeting, I want to convey that. But there are times when I'm meeting with people that wearing a three-piece suit isn't the right thing either. I can wear nice clothes, but not be overpowering, in my presence with the person. How I dress to meet with people residentially and how I might dress to go to a farm are two different things, right? To go to a farm, you need to have your rubber boots, which I do have, and I always bag my boots from farm to farm. They're cleaned in between because you don't want to transfer anything either. So I get little looks at people sometimes when what are you doing? I'm bagging my boots, and the farmer goes, wow, that's impressive, right? Because you're thinking ahead. You don't want to cause an issue for any farmer along the way. So yes, there's no apprenticeship program. I wish there was. I've said for years that anyone that comes out gets their registration. They're still obliged to take more courses during their first couple of years when they're working, but they're not really. It's just more courses. It's not a confirmation of what their knowledge is, right? And that's what the test needs to be.
Being a simple engineer, my thought is if I can make $50 an hour working myself, or have 3 apprentices working at $40 an hour, obviously the second choice makes me more money.
Yeah.
So it would be to your benefit. I don't mean in dire straits, but when business is booming, you have a chance to look after 2 deals at the same time, or 3 or more. So would that not be a benefit for every realtor to take on a mentor, since it's not costing you anything till you make $1?
Yeah, it would be, but it's hard to break that down, that barrier. It's a barrier and it's hard to break it down. Some brokerages have, depend on the size of the brokerage, but they'll have a manager that does only training or offers support, and they only focus on realtors new to the industry. It doesn't matter what age you are, when you get your license, you're new to the industry. So those brokerages that have a manager to mentor they're the managers that I thank, because they are properly training the new realtor.
Okay, we're running out of time fast, but I'm good if you're good. I'll ask you a couple of questions. Real estate, you're an expert, and you and I have dealt, I've had 7 or 8 transactions in Kincardine in my 25 years, and you've been very helpful throughout, and I'll vouch for that. And other questions that come up, people can talk to you directly. But I now need to ask you some other things. Other than real estate, what do you and I have in common?
We're both community volunteers. We're
Thank
both
you.
very committed to our community.
I'm glad you said that. And when I tell GTA people that 35% of things in small towns run on volunteers,
Mm-hmm.
they don't understand that.
No, they don't.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll give you a chance to talk about where we met last week. What was that? How did that get formed? And what is the outcome?
The organization's called 100 People Who Share Bruce County.
Say that again, please.
100 People Who Share Bruce County is the name of the group. And it was founded here in Kincardine by a common friend of ours, Bill Pike, and his wife, Sharon. I've been involved since day 2, I think. And it's a wonderful way to bring people together. Bill always says, give me 1 hour of your time. And 1 hour. Oh, what's he say all the time, Eddie? He says it too many times. I can't remember. Anyway, you meet for an hour. You hear 3 presentations from local not-for-profits with charitable status. And at the end of the presentations, you pick one, and everyone gives $100. And we do that 3 times a year. So different years, our membership has been as high as 134. Right now, we're rebuilding again. COVID really hit the group hard. We lost a lot of membership then, but we're rebuilding, still. We had presentations last week from the Walker House, which is a wonderful museum here in Kincardine, Habitat from Humanity, Grey Bruce, which is a fantastic organization, as well as Neighbor to Neighbor Kincardine Good Food Box. And that helps. The food box is specific to people with food insecurities, but even those that are having difficulty, I can have a good food box. It's got great produce in it. It's $25 every time it comes out. It's great. It's a great program. They were the winners, the Good Food Box. The people that were in the audience voted. The votes were tabulated, and the Good Food Box is the recipient of all. At this point, we have about 50 people that have made their commitment, so that's $5,000 that they didn't have a week ago. We also had a silent auction, and in that silent auction, another $1,904 was raised. Those proceeds also go to the Good Food Box. So over the years, collectively, we've raised just under $225,000 to support local charitable organizations that need the money. You know, whether it's our Kinetic Knights team, the robotics team, here ensures hospice, or the Good Food Box, everything in that range has made presentations to our group. So every year it's a commitment. I know it's $300, but that 300 multiplies very quickly. One year we had a group that got $14,000 in one night. So that's really helping that organization sustain or purchase a piece of equipment or do some marketing that they need to do without having to write a grant and wait and hope.
Right. Good. Thank you. Thank you for that information. One thing dear to me, and I bring this up every time we talk about this, to put Kincardine on the map and to keep Kincardine and make it grow, we need to have something here to keep our teenagers. After high school, we lose them unless they get employed by Bruce Power, but not everybody gets employed. So when they go to the city for community college, whatever, they don't come back, you know. And 21 years I've been dreaming of having a Mohawk College or Seneca College in Kincardine, but it's not happening. What can be done? What can our mayors and the municipal office and people like that?
It's tough to get a community college to stay in a community our size. Owen Sound has Georgian College, a larger center, but they draw in, and they have a very unique program that they offer. Because of the nuclear industry, Fanshawe College, Lambton College, Georgian have set up satellites here, but they're virtual. They're not brick and mortar, which is helpful to our young people. But again, often if they're in apprenticeship programs, they need to go out of the community to work in that for their apprenticeship. I'm seeing more of them come back in the last 5 years. More students have returned to Kincardine, but we still have that caveat where they do leave. So it's tough, but you know, Kincardine's not alone in that. The community I was from in Eastern Ontario had the same issue. The kids left home to go get their education. They might come back in 10 or 15 years, depending on a job, but initially they did leave. It's a tough battle, but the municipal governance just doesn't have the ability to build. Bruce Power built the new training center, but that's not the same as a college. It's a tough one.
Right. The other question that comes to mind is I still see a busing kids out of Kincardine to Walkerton.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if it's because of separate school board or.
It is.
Is that something that we can keep in kindergarten? And I'm concerned about the winter days. There are so many days that this bus can't make it.
Yeah, well, because of we have the public system and the Catholic system, we don't have a Catholic high school locally. So that's why those high school age students that want to stay in the Catholic system, they go to Walkerton here, from here. So yes, they did miss a lot of school days in February. So did our public school kids though, because the roads were closed, so nobody could go anywhere.
Yeah, I guess.
Sometimes our students, our high school students, have to go out of Kincardine, maybe to Port Elgin or to Walkerton, to the public high school to get a particular course that they want, because our school doesn't offer shop anymore. So, and that, again, it all comes down to how the two boards manage the curriculum in our schools and get the teachers that, it's all about numbers, right? If we only have 3 students in Kincardine that want shop, but there's 60 in Walkerton, then they're going to put the program in Walkerton.
Right. So this is a general statement I'll make. Not just Kincardine, but all of Ontario, all of Canada is still dependent on immigrants.
Yeah.
So we get immigrants, we get adult immigrants. They've done all their schooling somewhere else, and they're ready to get their feet wet here. So any advice for new immigrants who have come here on student visas or are coming here, any advice you'd give them to selfishly to attract them to Kincardine?
Well, we're not a big city. It's a different lifestyle. And if they've come with ideas of, big shopping malls and things like that, that's not going to happen here. So it's about perceptions and what they want. It's difficult to explain to them, and language, I think, is the biggest barrier. Being able to have a good command of any language is essential to no matter what community or country you go to. Sometimes people, when they learn a second or third or fourth language, their primary language accent stays. So it makes learning English a little bit different or difficult, right? I have several friends. They're not just from France or German or India, but their mother tongue influences how their new language sounds, and that can be a problem for some people. Again, it's not just for the immigrants coming in. We can be a pretty racist society, and that's disturbing to me. That we don't welcome people, no matter their color or culture. They should all be welcome. I know our Kincardine refugee community here has really, really done a great job working with families that have come from harm's way in Afghanistan and other countries of war. They've worked very, very hard. I'm very proud to say that even another organization that I'm with, the Canadian Federation of Women, here in Kincardine, we gave a young lady $1,000 just to help her studies. She was accepted as a mature student at the University of Guelph. She got into the program she wanted, but once she got to the school and day to day, her English wasn't strong enough. So she's had to take a step back and do another program, to facilitate preparing herself better to do what her goal is. So it can be difficult, but everyone should have a lot of support. Support networks are important.
Going back to the point you made about big cities have malls and entertainment and all those things, a lot of the younger kids throw that in my face when I talk about that. And I explained to them, I said, look, I spent 20 plus years in the GTA and Burlington, which is now part of GTA. And I said, reality is that 40 hours I work, and then 20 hours more I go and moonlight and do other work. So what difference does it make if there's a mall or not?
Yeah.
Don't have the money to spend over there. Now, maybe there's more employment opportunities, But what difference does it make if there's Uber there and I can't afford it?
Mm-hmm.
And on that subject, and we do, Bill Pike and I, we are part of certain people who drive people all over Ontario. And when I picked up somebody the other day, we try very hard to make sure we're not being misused. This guy was living in $1 million home.
Mm.
Okay? So I go there and, I have my antenna up saying, am I being misused here?
Yes.
So I go inside and the old couple there, the guy standing there, well dressed, everywhere the sign of affluence, all their artwork in their living room and their everything is not cheap. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying, does this guy really need me? Right? And he's standing there with a bunch of rolled paper money in his hand. And he almost had tears in his eyes. And he says, Mr. Daniel, he says, I get $1,250 CPP. And out of that, I pay $800 plus for heating, electricity, and taxes for this big house. So that leaves me 400 for the rest of the month for food, groceries, going to medicine, buying prescription, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what about old age? He said, well, they gave me $750 old age supplement. And then they clawed back because I have $1 million property.
Mm-hmm.
So he's in a fix. And the government does not give any break for senior citizen, no tax reduction, no this thing. And even CPP gets taxed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the simple logical solution I saw was that, buddy, it's time to downsize. Why do you need a 6-bedroom house?
Mm-hmm.
And that brought tears to his eyes, saying, well, my son Willie comes in that room. He likes his own bedroom and washroom. My daughter comes, I'll save. So they've kept all their children's room preserved the way it was. So $1 million question I asked, when did they come last? He said, well, 2 years ago on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So, but then again, if I can force him to convince him to downsize like I've done myself, it can be a cause for depression.
Yes.
So if you're not preparing for your downsizing in your 50s, it's not going to happen in your 70s. Okay? So this is tough. This is life. These are things that I don't know. We need more volunteers training people that, hey, it's time to, downsize. And our local area here, Bruce Park especially, has got umpteen people retiring too early. They started at 18 and they put in the years at 52 or something, they're entitled to retire. Now they don't have any social life. They can't golf 12 months in a year, especially here, unless you have yellow balls. And finance and depression and matrimonial problems they have. So I've got a couple of 60-year-olds whom I'm helping with, and I'm 80. So these are all things that the government programs are neglecting.
Yeah.
And I talked to the municipality people, I talked to people here, and they all say the same thing. Yes, this is good. Yes, this is good, but we need volunteers. So we need to clone more of the volunteers that we've got. But this is a big problem. That's an ongoing problem. And what's happening in the state just now is not helping at all. It's making things worse.
It is. It is.
Languages. I'll tell you, and this is funny, but I'll tell you anyway. As a stand-up comedian, my biggest challenge in Carton is being an interpreter for two people who are arguing on the street. One's a Scotsman, one is an Irishman. Only I understand what they say. Yeah. Most of the people who are struggling with English, they are perfect in some other language.
Yes.
They've got the sharp brain. They learn fast. It may take time. Accent like mine, I've been here 56 years. My accent is still there, right?
Yep.
And English was my first language.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do? We used to have a class here for ESL, I think it was called. English.
Yes.
Yep. I'm not sure if it's still prevalent, still common, but so you and I can't solve the world's problems, but we have to keep trying. So back to where you and I started, big thing we can do is enroll volunteers, enroll mentorship program, enroll apprentice, and life will get better, And
Agree.
it's a long range, slow process, but they're all going to be consumers finally and people who spend money in that country. So it's betterment. Maybe you and I won't reap from it, but our children will. Anything we missed?
I think we've covered a lot of ground today, sir.
Okay. So I'm going to thank you very much and I'm going to stop the recording.
Hey, Donnie, buddy, lend an ear. We've got something that you gotta hear. This ain't fake news or fantasy. We're talking borders, geography. That's the border, you hoes are not a joke. From west of BC to Atlantic's coast. It's a real darn line not made of smoke. So don't cross it like you're broke. It's got signs and fences, even guards, and customs folk with border cards. We love you, Donnie, but let's be clear. That maple line is serious, dear. Okay, Donnie, like it's not just a line someone doodled with a crayon and, yeah, there's like actual dudes there in uniforms. You try driving through without saying hi and you're gonna learn real fast, eh? It's not a polite suggestion. It's a border like a wall, but with better manners. Take off, man. That's the border, you hoes will learn the map. If you cross it wrong, they'll give you a slap. It's the line that keeps our beer supply from spilling south to where eagles fly. See, Canada's real, and so's the US. We like peace, we don't